recording. Okay, cool. With that said, let's get started. I'm super excited. I'm always super excited about our events, of course. But today we have Matt Bolian of RevPartners joining us. And for those who don't know, RevPartners are a diamond partner of HubSpot. They are specifically focused on RevOps. And as you can see from the background, I'm not sure if you can see. Let me put them on the gallery. So Matt, they can see you now. They do RevOps as a service. So they, and just they are diamond partner, but they only became diamond partner after 5 months. The road to diamond for most of our partners takes 5 years. So that's really exceptional. If you want to read more about that, here's an article I'm also sharing with everyone here. But in short, I'm really super excited to have Matt join our community and to talk more about hiring RevOps professionals. Why are we holding this event? Well, because RevOps is becoming more and more mainstream. More and more companies are trying to look for, some people with those particular skill sets, and the more people are looking for that, the harder they become to find as well. And what is that skill set in the first place? Luckily, Matt has been hiring RevOps Jedis for a living, so he's going to unveil exactly what you are looking for and how to get them. And I'm not going to leave you guys on the edge of your seats any longer. I'm just going to hand it over to Matt. Hope you all enjoyed this presentation. I'll see you all in the Q&A in about half an hour. Take it away, Matt.
Jan, thank you so much. That is a tall task. I will do my best, and we will get started. I want to confirm that we go, John, before you do this, that I'm going to start sharing my screen, that everybody can see it. Is that fair? Can y'all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna step straight in and get through this. And so to me, I'm gonna start with, what does success look like today for us? In my mind, number one is, what makes a RevOps professional? And we're gonna go through that in some detail, because when you leave this, hopefully you will have a better way to articulate this, because it's so difficult to think about. And practically is, yes, HubSpot can be used as an applicant tracking system as much as it can be a CRM. That's what we do. So at least to show you that capacity in HubSpot, because that's how we put people through our hiring process. But number two is, in what the majority of this focus is going to be, is about how to test for the qualities that make a strong RevOps professional, and the difficulty around doing that, and how we're like on version 6 at this point, and how we have gotten to where we are and how we currently do it today. Hopefully that will provide some insight for all y'all. Okay, so to get started, this will be our guide as we think about agenda. I'll do a quick introduction, and then we'll just get into the problem statement of why it's so difficult and who that RevOps strategist is, how we do it in our process, and then we'll talk about the screen, the mocks that we do, and then we'll go to Q&A. So me, a background about me and how I got into RevOps is, I'm from a West Point grad, and then was in military intelligence in the U.S. Army, where it was all about collecting, synthesizing, and disseminate information. So it's a lot. It was revenue operations in the military. And then when I got out into the private sector, I went into and started, I led some revenue operations departments. And so from there, then co-founded RevPartners at the beginning of this year. We've had success. So as we go to that, is kind of our mission. And so part of why I feel so passionately about this is to democratize revenue operations for all. So traditionally it's too difficult. It's like too expensive to get people for the $1 million to $5 million companies that are growing. And it's just difficult to be able to have a full-fledged revenue operations department. Hopefully this will allow people to navigate those waters easier. And this is our claim to fame. This is for the fastest partner in the HubSpot's ecosystem to reach platinum and diamond as we go. So what we do, and that Jan went to, is our main 80% of our revenue is only coming from managed revenue operations. And so we live and die by our ability to hire revenue operation professionals well. And so we have to have this right. If we don't have a business. So we think about it a lot. And we're going through iterations. We don't have it perfect. I don't pretend we have it perfect. But this is a point, is we think about it, and hopefully because we encounter this problem more often than others, that we'll be able to shed insight into it, and so that you can set up a revenue operations team internally. So now I'm going to get into the problem statement. Before we get into there, I'm going to say this meta picture. So actually I have a talk at Inbound that's going to talk about what we alluded to just a few seconds ago when we were doing the introduction that Jan was doing. There is this almost this wave of increasing demand for revenue operations people. But I'm going to go through and it's going to talk about, okay, what is it? What's causing it? And honestly, let's like redefine what revenue operations is. So traditionally here it's sales, marketing, and CS, and it's put together under one roof. But as I'm going to show you today, like technically recruiting is revenue operations. So it's just like, we'll think about and understand what that means, and then how that's caused the rise of what we coined. What I say is the strategic technician, that unique unicorn that can do strategy and technical competency, and it can take more complex tech stacks, more data that's being produced, and answer this question. We actually have less clarity, even though we have all this more data. And like the strategic technician is able to like think strategically, implement in the systems, and actually create clarity where it's more and more difficult. And the strategic technician is actually the competitive differentiation in a business. And so they are hiring more of them. So I'll go into depth in that in inbound. I'm going to sit right here just as a point is there's increased demand and everybody wants them. So that leads us into our problem. Everybody wants these. Everybody wants the RevOps person, but there's like unclear what this definition is, but you're just thinking about RevOps. It's like there's 4 fundamental problems when it comes to hiring. It's structure. Like, where does this RevOps person live in this structure? What function are they playing? It's okay. Once I've identified that structure, how do I locate that person? Like, where do they live out in the wild in the business land? How do I test them once they get into the funnel? Like maybe I have a recruiter and they brought them in, or I'm creating inbound demand. Well, I get them. How am I then testing that they actually know revenue operations, can form that function well? And then this is like the next is like, if I have them, or if there's not there, how am I training people once they come into the system to get better at revenue operations? So today is each one of these problems or problem sets that deserves an entire function. We're mostly, I'm gonna like touch on structure because we have to. And then most of the time today is on the test phase. It's like, once you get them into the funnel, how do you test for the specific characteristics that will make a revenue operations professional? And even more specific, that it's like one specific role inside that team. And we'll get into that in a second. Okay, so this is, I'm gonna get into the structure just to the point, and I'm gonna like revenue operations. It's like, if you go and put a Google search on it, you're gonna get bajillions of answers. They're all gobbledygook. They say the same thing. It's a combination of sales, marketing, CS teams put into one thing to make it. Look, RevOps looks at a business and decreases friction for all their functions. And so fundamentally, you need somebody, when you think about structure, you need somebody that can do 4 functions, or a team holistically that can do 4 functions. They can create strategy. And the strategy is, I need to grow by 300% in 3 years. How am I going to do that? And be able to think holistically throughout the entire business. That is, well, if you need to increase capacity, then you need to have a hiring plan. If you have a hiring plan, you need to be able to set commission rates, and you have to be able to think through the entire strategy. You have to have the process that you then can implement to execute the strategy. You have to know how to create clean data that the process is going to create, because every process creates data, both behaviorally, like how do you implement those behavior things? Like, how do I run pipeline calls for salespeople? And then at the end, then like they take that, how do I visualize this data and translate it so I can make data informed decisions? That's a lot of stuff. And that is what RevOps does at its most basic level. So oh yeah, by the way, we need these people to be experts in sales operations, marketing operations, CX operations, and know it like so well that they can be able to inform and have constructive conversations about it. When you think about like how we answer this question, we structure it, is we focus mostly on this $1 to $20 million. It's kind of from that growth. It's like prior to that, the $1 to $20 million is where we think like revenue operations, democratizing it and has the best number is, and we think you can do it just in one department. And there's a whole lot of ways to structure this, but just sit with me. Let's take this hypothetical as revenue operations can sit as a separate department. It can run the tech stack from your sales and marketing department. And the way we see this work most successful is having 3 people, or think about these 3 functions, because you can have multiple people sometimes. So you have a pod of 3 people. You have a RevOps strategist. That is the leader of this department, of this pod. They are generalists. understand and have expertise in all those different realms, can drive decisions, understand strategies, and from a technical implementation, know how systems work, know how data works, and then can lead that team. Underneath that, you have these system admins, these technologists or junior strategists that are doing some of the admin work and the maintenance to keep a system together. And so they're putting out the fires, if you would. And then as you grow in complexity, you need some data engineer that's building out your data modeling and your data warehouse storing and how you're translating the data from different systems and back and forth. So as you get ever increasing, you need somebody on the team that's focused only on that. So as you think about the structure today, we're going to focus on the RevOps strategist. Why? That is the first person that needs to be hired. It's the most important hire. The rest of these, well, they're all important. It's just the most important hire to get right first, because that's a person that will lead the team. So what makes a successful RevOps strategist? And this is where the Jedi portion, and you know, I've gone through a lot of stuff already. It's already like they're experts in sales, marketing, CS. They can do strategy. They can do technical implementations. And they need to be data native. So specifically what that means is you need to understand relational databases. So even more specific is, you know what a primary key and a foreign key is, and you're able to set up a database and you can join different tables together, and you can, then that goes, you can visualize data structures in your head. And you have a the fundamentals of data, of how to clean data. If you're going to do a migration, you need to, how you look for duplicates, how you understand what different field types are, like just the fundamental of data. You need a data native individual that can speak data. So speak data to me, right? They can do it. Clarity is not only can they speak data, they have this trait of we call it the clarity creator. And we use this bluff. It is called bottom line up front. It's just the ability to say, if when we leave this meeting, this is the thing that I want to make sure I have communicated and the result that I want. So there's the ability to take very complex situations and put it into a very simple and easy to understand sentences. They can draw and map processes. They take they're very organized and take notes, because they are almost the arbiters of the processes inside the company. And the last is this forward momentum. It's this next, like more intangible trait that is, you are driving decisions and challenging people. If you see something different, like you are not a passenger on this car, you are driving the car. And so part of that is they're able to make recommendations with confidence. And another thing is using dates, times, and owners. So it's like the PM, they take a lean forward, not a lean back, wait approach. So we take about these three things. I just want to like, what is this? What is this called? I've essentially like described, we want to hire an executive, right? We just want this is the problem with RevOps and where we're at is we want the pink unicorn, the RevOps Jedi, who is already fully evolved into their force structure, and they can take on Darth Vader already. And the fact is, this is the hard truth of it all, is few people meet these requirements. And if they do meet these requirements, they're too expensive to hire right now. Next is like, they're like non-traditional backgrounds. And there's not this like very linear path of, they have, gone junior strategist into senior strategist into now leading a RevOps department. It's just, it doesn't happen that linearly in the operations land. So it's like difficult to find them. It's difficult to understand when somebody comes into the funnel, if they can actually meet these things. So this is where the question comes, and where we found the most difficulty and executing. Everybody wants that title, and it's really easy to get people to apply, quite frankly. It's much harder to say, how do I judge the current state of someone, like their competency in RevOps, their RevOps competency and expertise from an operational perspective. And most importantly, how do you recognize future potential? And I just call it the ability to learn, just like the skill of learning skills. And then you have this next intangibles. How do you have to have this person that's not afraid of failure, this driver, this bias for action, that's just different and needs to be very unique to revenue operations. So it's that marrying of like the technical aptitude with this like personable, can run meetings, confident in people, and can talk in front of people that you need to combine together. And so and what I'm going to show you today is our fifth attempt. I can't remember what version I said. It's fifth or sixth attempt at doing this. Well, hopefully it can shed light on your current processes and you can be able to implement in your business. Okay. So here's our process. I just want to say, what is it? So we take a lot of this from the book Who. If y'all read that, it's very helpful for us as we were thinking through this. But first is application, which I'm not going to go over today. Next, because it's just an application where you're just submitting a PDF form and putting it in. And what I want to show you on the right side, I kind of like have the pass rates through these, and I'm missing the reference check pass rate, but like you're going to see that we have the screening interview, and the screening interview, which I'll go over, is 50% pass rate. And then you go into your mock interviews, which we'll spend time on: screening, mock, both mocks, reference check, and culture interview. So we're like the rubber hits the road on these are screening interview, mock, mapping session, and the weekly sync. And so that's going to spend the time, because the rest of those are you can find lots of, you can just Google and find lots of information on those. But these three, you will not find lots of information in a RevOps context today. So that's where we'll spend our time. Number one, so this is our hiring process. I'm going to be, and we do everything. We draw everything out as any good RevOps person would. And this is also what we check for, is this is our exact process. You can't see it. It's too difficult to see. I'm actually going to go into Miro now. And you can see it. So we differentiate what happens in HubSpot, what actions the candidates are doing, what actions RP is doing, and then identify what's manual and what's not manual. My whole point of showing you this is there is no way you can hire 2 points. There's no way you can hire a high value RevOps person unless you are extremely deliberate in the process. It rarely happens by luck. Number two, HubSpot can be a ATS system, and we've built our entire recruiting hiring process into HubSpot today. In our HR department, this is exactly what we use. We use HubSpot to track all leads, and it goes through these processes. What we're going to focus on is that I mentioned. We're going to have the initial screening. We're going to have the mock interview, the third mock interview, and then we're not going to focus on the reference checks or the culture interview. So now I'm going to go back. Give me a second. Oh, I'm not sharing that right now. Okay. So let's get into what the screening interview is. So the screening interview, we only ask 4 questions, 4 very simple questions. And the point of this is our, like we actually capture this. We don't have a pat. We only want A players on the team. And the pass rate of this is 40%. So 40% of candidates that are going through the selection process make it past the screening interview. So point is, this is when we talk about what are your career goals, what are you really good at, what are you really good at professionally, what are you not good at, interested in doing professionally, we're starting, and we talk about clarity creator, data native, and forward momentum. We're looking for those very specific items, and we are checking, hey, is this person like being in front of and briefing people? Do they like creating processes? Do you like data? And so we're starting to check those boxes and using this as a good way of screening. And we'll ask follow-up questions if they're not answering those questions right. What you noticed, what we're not doing, this is not a competency test. We are not asking people about sales ops. We're not asking people about marketing ops. We're asking people, what do you enjoy doing? And then the fourth one we spent a lot of time on, which is tell me your last 5 bosses, how they will rate you on a scale of 1 to 10, and when we talk to them. And we literally get our reference checks there. And when we have our scales. And why are they going to give you that rate? So this tends to be, this is just a great indicator. And what we're not checking for their current capacity or even their potential here. It's just like, as a person, are you able to clearly communicate these? Do they fall relatively in line with those 3 criteria mentioned earlier, which are data native, clarity creator, and forward momentum? And fourth and third, like generally, do we think we're going to be a fit with our culture? So that's a screening interview. And that is done at the very beginning, and 40% pass. Next, I'm going to spend a lot of time on the mocks. So we can go through these, because this is where this is really where we understand whether someone knows revenue operations. So first, before I get into them, let's go over, just step back for a second and why we use mocks. So why we use mocks for RevPartners. So number one is mocks we give people scenarios that we have experienced in revenue operations, like specific customers, not using their names, and we have them replicate the exact experience. And we give them a lot of instructions. So this is scenario-based applications, number one. Number two is we literally give, and this is part of like, how do you balance that tension between current capacity and potential? And that's when it's like revenue operations. It's because there's not this linear path. Future potential is so much more important than current capacity, just fundamentally. So just want to be like that is what we're looking for. So it's like we give people the tools. And I'll give examples of this, but we provide all the training and we give them the guides for success. Number three, we use scorecards. Every mock has a scorecard, and there's a certain threshold we're looking for. Now, importance of this scorecard is and they're all relative. So we have everybody that's ever been in through our process has a number on a scorecard. And so when somebody comes in, we have a certain threshold and we can generally gauge where they're at. So we have two different mocks. So it is possible, and I say this, it is possible at RevPartners to become, and we'll hire someone to lead a revenue operations team that has never worked as a RevOps person. I think that's just so fundamental here as we think about these scorecards. It is because we're going to judge for current capacity, but we're also mainly judging for future potential. And we're trying to gauge, you have to, and you'll see these mocks, but the scorecards allow us to score different aspects of a candidate and not weigh too heavily on current capacity, because it's impossible to know everything about RevOps. And it's what comes afterwards is the training. The training aspect becomes really important. Number four, two people is grades are never given by one person only. All mocks are done with a minimum of two people to give the scores, and they're done the averages, and they discuss if something is way off, we discuss it. So it's always two people. Another aspect of I think doing revenue operations interviews is how important it is for instant feedback. And I say this for two reasons. Is instant feedback is we instantly tell someone whether they passed or failed the interview during the interview, and we give the exact reasons why. But this goes with our last one, because future potential and like this ability to get back up, this like driving and kind of like this grit aspect that is so important, this forward momentum, so important to be a true revenue operations professional, is we allow anybody, if they're willing, because we're giving very specific feedback from a scale of 1 to 10, how we do. Often we'll tell someone if they got a 2, is we allow people to repeat the mocks, same exact mock over and over again until they pass, if they want to. So I think it's just like give you the overview of how these mocks are run, because it's a bit different. Again, we are airing, it just, in my opinion, strongly feel this way, is it potential matters so much more than current capacity. Okay, so now we're going to get into what the first mock is and the two different mocks that we use to be able to judge different aspects of being the RevOps strategist. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to go a little bit more. What they do is we're the juggling the tension of current versus potential. So because of that, we're giving people like a lot. We're allowing people to prepare for these, and we're giving them everything they need to succeed. And you can pass this without ever doing revenue operations, because if you can make processes, you've done revenue operations. And we're mainly testing for clarity, creator, and forward momentum. We're actually not testing for data native. And the reason that is because data native, we can simply give someone there's courses and like, here's relational database. When you hire, just do this prior to coming. And honestly, being data native, it's actually easier to teach than the clarity, creator, and forward momentum that happen to be, in my mind, more intangibles and showcase future potential more. So the first one, the mock map. So when you think mapping, and I was going to the Miro slide, and you saw, and we went over what it looks like for the HR, it's the ability to, just in general, it's the ability for someone to talk to someone, get business requirements, and not just write them down, but draw them. And I think this is so important. It's the ability to draw and start creating based on what someone's telling you they need. And so that's what's testing, and it gives the ability for people to flex if their operation knowledge, if they have it, so they can like flex there. But if they don't, you can still succeed, because it's all about just, can you ask the right questions, and can you create clarity in a complex situation? And sometimes just drawing out boxes and having people do flows, you can create clarity. And so it allows us to see also, like, we give people a lot of training material, and if they prepare, they're going to kill it. So it just allows, like, hey, are you willing to do the work it takes to be able to do this well, even if you've not done this before, and this is truly something you want to do? We're able to judge that. So the scenario we talk is we can deconstruct past. And so this is the scenario we currently use. I won't go over it in too much detail, but essentially this, right? We have we have a CEO, and there's always a CEO and a CEO, or CRO, that want to grow, and they've experienced rapid growth and they want to grow even more, but they need somebody to help them think about their transformation in order to grow. So you have to come in and you have to lead people. Like, you have to ask the right questions around strategy. You have to ask the right question. You have to begin drawing things out. And the objective is, you can then take that drawing, and you'll see our next MOF is you use that same drawing, and then you have to run a weekly sync around you implementing all the processes that you've identified that you need to do. Now, in order to do this, is we don't leave people out. We give them training. So we have this is literally what we train people and how we train. We give them that video. We give them a video of me doing it for a client. So like, they see it live, and what questions I ask, how I questions I ask. And the expectation is they're sharing their screen and they're drawing, and they're using Miro, that same, and we give them links to Miro, but the same application I just showed you, using that to draw. Here's the scorecard, and we use an Excel. We're both on it. And as we're talking, like, the two people are in character, and they're acting as the CEO and the CRO, and they have very specific roles they fill. And they have like questions, and each of them have like, we have certain points we want to hit out. So I'm just going to walk you through a scorecard. We can go in more in depth, and we'll provide the scorecard after this as part of the end. But this is like, when we think about the mapping, it's like, how well can someone draw a process? And so we gave them, if they go into the how-to, we gave them our format. So did they see our format? Are they using our format and our colors? How much setup did they do prior to the meeting, especially when we gave them everything? Are they able to talk and map at the same time? Here's an example. Something we do is like, I'm deliberate. Like, if you're mock, we have one of the people is deliberately late. How do they react to the person being late? Because we come in to that meeting in character. Are they using decision boxes? I know this sounds weird, but like, it is decision boxes, meaning there's some kind of there's a point here, you say the decision, and then there's different routes, like the if-thens, if you would. And then like, are they able, I'm like, people will bring up things. Are they able to delay decisions? And so we have this like litany of things we're just checking, and we give them a 1, we give them a 0 to 1. And at the end, we have a threshold score. We also, and this is where it makes this mapping, is you're able to flex your sales ops. So example, this company is like, their sales ops all broken, and they have holding stages. They don't have any KPIs or matrix. They don't have lead routing. They don't have, they just bought HubSpot. They have HubSpot, but they're using MailChimp for the email data, and they don't have, just like, everything's broken. And their ability to walk through those and identify them, they get additional points as they identify the broken portions and draw it out as future things to talk about. And so like, the faster someone's able to get through it, the more that they can draw, the more they can go through the system, the better score they're going to get. And so we even have like things like, we hide upsells, right? So like, oh, you can like potentially think about upsells. So like, this is able to gauge someone's potential. You don't need to know sales ops or marketing ops to do well, but it does help. Okay, I'm going to get to the mock meeting. And so the mock meeting fundamentally is and just a quick point is, actually more people have to repeat this one than they do the mapping session. So just the funny thing is, a lot of people can like map, but they're really bad at like running a project, and we're not as bad, just not as good at running a project and like creating the identifying blockers and talking through like next steps, dates, and owners. We'll talk about this more. Just this happens to be something we have repeated more often than the other. So what we're testing here is, how well can someone take what they saw on a map, translate that into a project? So it is, okay, I have visualized, I've identified what needs to change. Now, can I take this change from current to future state and put it onto a plan and articulate it in a way, and like in the way that we are interacting with our customers often, which is a weekly sync. We're going over things. So we take that and we get this exact same thing. It's like, hey, we need to know, what are the priorities? What are we doing next this week? What progress have we made on past? And so you have to like you have to like pretend you're 2 weeks after the mapping session and you're starting to work. And what decisions do we need to make that that are blockers? So it just helps us understand how is someone's project management, and are they able to lead projects well and drive. So this is most fundamentally the forward momentum portion. And so this is something, if you know how to run a good meeting, you don't need to know RevOps. If you can, like, we've had one person that knew nothing about RevOps, came in and just slayed this weekly meeting. And we're like, okay, we want that person, because clear, like this person, yes, they didn't perform as well on the mapping session, because they didn't know like sales ops and marketing ops as well, but they were able to like, draw out, and it made sense linearly. And then they just killed this meeting. It's like, okay, so you can err towards future and current capacity. And so this is a point. And I don't think we spend enough time as a RevOps community talking about RevOps is like driving behaviors and driving people to get things done and execute, and keeping people organized, almost like a chief of staff type element. So we give them everything they need here. Even like I even give them a video on how to run a meeting. We have a whole deck on here's how we run these, and give them all that they need to be able to execute these well. We have a scorecard for this as well. And this is things like, are they doing the bluff? So are they able to, here is what we need to get to, here's what success looks like for today. If we don't do this, we have failed. Be able to drive decisions, saying I identified this as a decision, and if we do not make decision by X date, then we will not be able to execute our plan together. Some of the bonus, we think about clarity, creator, and forward momentum. It's like, hey, are you recapping through the meeting to make sure we all understand where we're at? So stop. Hey, here's what I heard you said. Can you confirm that's correct? Then moving forward momentum. And we do this. Part of this scenario is I'm actually a CEO in this, and I talk about like going to Starbucks coffee with them. And so are they going to interrupt me when I'm off topic? Because I'm wasting their time. Meetings done well is a meeting that's doesn't happen. What I mean by that is like the faster a meeting's ended, the better it is. And so like, are you getting to the end state quickly? And so if someone's diverting you from doing that, are you able to take command of that meeting, interrupt that person, feel comfortable challenging and putting them back on topic? So we like have those as part of their mock, and then do all tasks, which is like a little one, have all date timers. So there's a litany of these things that we're just looking through to help us understand how does this person rank and what's their capacity. So we take both these mocks into account, and then we think about, hey, are we hiring this person? So I'm going to stop because I'm getting to Q&A time. I think I kept this 30 minutes right on the dot, which was my end state. But just to recap what we just went over is we talked about why hiring RevOps people is an issue, because it's difficult, and we need like the function of RevOps is so broad. It's hard to have someone who can execute it well to do strategy and the technical portions. Thus, in the hiring process, we have over-indexed to doing future capacity versus current capacity, because that is more important. The ability to do strategic and then learn some of the technical things actually are less important, because they're easy to train, especially if you use something like HubSpot. You just get on it and you can take the certifications and you know it. And so that's how we do it. And the way we do it is we have the screening interview, and we have the mock map and the mock meeting. And then that's how we are able to better understand if we want to extend an offer to a RevOps strategist. And we hire about 1 to 2 a month at this point. Okay, I'm going to stop here. It is question and answer time.
Yeah, that was awesome, Matt. Thank you for going.
I hope you're not saying that, and it was good, but it was good.
No, it was. I was really amazed. Like, I'm not in a RevOps position myself, but I was truly amazed by how deliberately you're looking at all of these specific aspects, and not just the fact that you're looking at you're measuring all these things, but you're also gauging for future potential. And I think that's really important, as RevOps is pretty new, and as more people are joining this. And yeah, I really like that part. But indeed, it's Q&A time. So people, if any of you have any questions for Matt about anything that he just said, I have a couple, but I'd love to, have him answer your questions first. There was one question that Jedi was posted at the very beginning of the presentation, and that is by, I think, Bala. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. And that is, why is there so much interest in collaboration using AI rather than collaborating with one another? I'm not sure if that's about your specific talk, but if you have any comments on that, Matt, feel free to give them.
RevOps with AI, collaboration via AI versus collaboration with each other. Here's my answer from a RevOps perspective. And that is a very broad question. So I'm just going to take a RevOps lens on it. So let me give a very specific way this is implemented if I was to do RevOps. So let's take call AI. So HubSpot, if you have enterprise, has the call function. And what the call function does is, when you have something like this and you're on with a prospect, AI will automatically identify which are the key terms and what questions are being asked over and over again. And so that's like AI, and that's collaborating through AI. And so like a manager can go back and look at that. So this is kind of where I think the break comes. Is it's one thing to have AI do that. It's another thing to collaborate one-on-one and leverage it inside your business for behavioral issues, not issues, but like to implement and like leverage that AI in your business. So that requires, you have to have a 30-minute one-on-one session. You have to have somebody review it and then discuss whether that was done well. The beauty of that is you can record that session and then give it to everyone. And then it has created scale and leverage in your business, because you've now done that one time. You've solved these same questions, and now you implement it over through something like playbooks in HubSpot. And now you make sure you're always ready for that same question. So that's just an example of using AI to inform collaboration with individuals throughout the entire organization. So hopefully that, from a RevOps perspective, that is helpful.
Yeah, I think it does. Bala, feel free to comment in the chat if it hasn't, but like I can kind of add to that at HubSpot, we're using, of course, our own HubSpot tools. And as a marketer, we're also, looking at sales calls and going through the recordings to see if anybody mentioned Operations Hub or any other features, and see if we can create any content or do anything about that too. So that's really, for a company of maybe 4,000 and plus people, that allows for immense scale. So that's, yeah.
I see one question that was early on, and it said, can you share an example of a RevOps description?
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you. So we're ongoing hiring for RevOps all the time. We actually, so like I mentioned, we are hiring a RevOps strategist every single month, sometimes twice per month. So I'm gonna share in the chat. Actually, I'll share my screen again just so y'all can see this. And what I'm gonna point out some things just so you'll notice. First is, this is what when we think strategists, like this is what it is. Like this is the person I talked about that we are hiring for, and specifically what we're looking for. I just want to I know this is like, you look at the job description, like these are the job descriptions, and it's literally, you're thinking strategically, building processes, capturing data and visualizing it. That is revenue operations. Like that is what it is. Anything that says anybody else, let's have a conversation about it. But I haven't seen a time when that's not it. And so when you look at this, it's very, very simple. And I almost and you'll say we over-index on potential here, because like, can you think through processes? Can you draw processes? Can you think strategically? And then when you work in HubSpot, I'll double down on this. When you work in HubSpot, and this is kind of our competitive advantage, feel free to take it, is HubSpot's easier to learn. So we don't have to hire Salesforce admins to execute, because we can go through certifications, and it allows us to focus on potential rather than current capacity. And that's just the beauty of it, what it is. So when you look at this, it's like, we have really funny things here, but this is what we're trying to say. It's like, can you take down King Kong with strategy and Godzilla with tactics? What we're trying to say is, do you enjoy these things? And do you feel like you like them? Because if you do, then you can learn them, and we'll together and we'll execute. Okay. I'm going to share this in the chat so we have it. Hopefully that answers that question.
All right, cool. Yeah, there was one anonymous question that came in. The person says, sorry, I'm late. What is the salary range for a RevOps strategist? This is a brand new title. I don't see any salary ranges when looking through Google and probably like Glass or anything like that.
It's beautiful. It's the RevOps. And so I like to be, I like to be very transparent. So we have, I would say a revenue strategist, there are levels, and you saw that, like, you have to you have to know everything, and you have to be able to lead meetings. You have to be able to do these things. And that's like the epitome. Someone that's doing that is making like $150,000 a year in a business. And so plus bonus. I mean, they're making 6-figure salaries, and that's US. So if we have people that are not, that's US currency. So it's for dollars. But you can go all the way down to someone that's just getting out of college and they want to learn this, and they know how to make processes, but not lead meetings. I mean, that is a junior. That's like a junior strategist that is making $50,000 coming out of college. And so how do you train up to that? I just mentioned that's a separate conversation that is worthy of a total another talk. But how do you level up RevOps when there is no linear path today? It's not like a doctor and you go to med school and you're done. How do you think through it? So hopefully that answers the question. 50 to 150. All right.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. In like what area in the US, maybe does that affect the salary ranges? I'm not in the US myself, so I don't really know.
think that's another discussion about whether you pay different for remote or locations.
Okay.
So we don't. You could work in. You can work in. I use this. I'm from Mississippi, which is a very rural location. You could be in rural location. What matters of RevOps is, do you have fast internet? That's the only, in my mind, the only stopping of having something like that, having a salary.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks. All right. So another question came in by Foster. What are some common industries, past titles of backgrounds from which you have seen smoother transitioning than others? I think it's a good question.
Yeah. So I'm going to repeat it to make sure I understand. It is, as we're hiring, because we have non-traditional backgrounds, what are titles or like some of the backgrounds that have had an easier transition into being a RevOps professional? So I'm going to say I've seen the successful, and this is difficult because, again, I find it tends to be more about a personality and what you enjoy doing than the title. In fact, when I interview people, I don't even look at their resumes because I don't care. Let me be clear about that. I don't care. Is what matters to me is, can you pass those mock exams? So I just want to I will answer the question, but so I'm going to answer it this way though. What type of jobs would prepare people to be able to pass those exams, those mocks? That's how I'd ask that question. And there's a job is, and I'm going to answer it from my perspective. For me, is project managers tend to make excellent revenue going into revenue operations, because they are very used to driving decisions and changing behaviors well, and driving behaviors, which is really what revenue operations is about. Learning like what KPIs, you can Google this. What KPIs should I track? You're going to learn that. Like, you can learn those over time. So non-traditional tend to be project managers. Number two, and I say this, is the next is anybody that is like in logistics tends to be like, because they're having to think about what is a blocker, like even warehousing and inventory tend to be like, have made really good transitions to RevOps. So hopefully that answers your question in a satisfactory manner, but feel free to follow up.
There was one question again by Bala: how to incentivize a RevOps professional?
I found this
is question, but yeah,
it's a good question. I mean, everybody loves. I mean, this is not true, so I'm going to say it for a second because that was a strong comment. I mean, money is like the easiest way when people think about incentivizing people. What I found is, if you found like period, right? Like, you need to have those structures in. You need to have thought about it, but what I find people care about, especially RevOps, me being RevOps myself, is what I cared most about was people investing in my ability to learn new skills, because that's what it takes. That's what it takes. So it would be things like paying for a free course in salesacademy.io that you asked for. It's like giving those, not that type of benefits. Like, I'm going to give you time to pass 5 HubSpot certifications today. So it's like giving people the space and incentivizing them to even in like paying, hey, I will pay for you to go to this certification class. That's what I'm saying has incentivized RevOps people the most, because they're upskilling. They're just constantly hungry.
That makes sense. Like growing and fostering a space where people continue to grow and learn. That's very important. Brandon had a question: where would a company start to find a RevOps person, and what types of companies typically do have RevOps people employed?
So that when we talked about the problems, we said structure of a RevOps team, where to find the RevOps person, how to identify or test them once you have them, and how to train them. So training deserves its own. We talked about like identification today. The next is location. And I'm going to tell you it's been successful for RevPartners, and then I can tell you it's like the next is. But it is really hard to find people. It's less about finding the people, because very few people have the titles of RevOps. And I'm going to be honest, I've actually interviewed people with the RevOps titles. They did not pass the mock. That's why I no longer look at resumes. I don't look, I do not like, I don't want to be like tainted, right? I just want to like, did you pass mock? Did you not pass mock? Like, very like, can you do this skill? So when you're talking about locating people, what I have found to be most successful to get our best candidates have been in like creating a brand, and then, and you can't do this right off, but creating a brand and having people apply, and there's inbound leads coming to you. Now, I mean, of course you can do like your title there's going to be some kind of operations. People are talking about sales and marketing like that. You can LinkedIn, write your algorithms, find those things. But in general, it's been, just like regular, if inbound leads come in that are applying, they tend to be the best candidates. And how do you find them? So how do you find them? They find you.
We had one question by Jennifer. Jennifer says that she loves doing RevOps at her business. It is still a small business, and she wears a lot of hats and puts out a lot of daily fires. If she were to hire someone to do this, it would need to be on a commission basis. Mm-hmm. And she says there are a lot of openings. If you search, are there a lot of openings if you search, and what are the keywords to search for in looking for those kinds of positions? Oh, that makes sense.
So I'll make sure I understand it. This is a request to someone that currently works at a business, does RevOps because they have to, but also wears a bunch of hats, and is looking to fulfill that position, help somebody, like hire the first person to come help them. That's how I understood it. That's how I'll answer it.
I think so.
Yeah, and if it's not, feel free to ask it again, and I'll answer it differently. So we're looking for your first hire. So I just want to be like, this is where I'm going to be very clear here. This is our RevPartners wants to democratize revenue operations, and the people. And so you talked about like, you have to find this person that knows how to do it. So large businesses over $20 million and ARR are able to hire that $150,000 employee plus benefits plus commissions. Under that, it's very difficult if you don't have any kind of seed money from an investor, and they're telling you need a RevOps department. So like, that's why I say why we exist, because we try to fill that need for people. So that's just a point. Just like, so like, I would tell you to go, and I'm going to be very specific, go find people like this that have created these large benches of RevOps, and you can get them at a discount because they're serving more, and they can be more efficient because they're doing it across a lot. They've seen a lot of different go-to-market motions. They know exactly what to do. They can do it over and over again, and they're very quick. And so there is value there. If you're trying to do it on commission, I just want to be warning, it's going to be extremely hard to find somebody with the skill sets if you're not prepared to train them and have a very specific training program. And that's just the hard reality of today, and today's market, not just today's market, just like of RevOps, because there is no funnel, say in college, to becoming a RevOps person. The jump is too large. So.
Yeah, Jennifer, I hope that answers your question. If not, feel free to add in the chat. Let's move on. There was one question by Matthew, actually 2 questions by Matthew. Let's start with the first one. Would you rather hire the person who knows the intricacies of data, for instance, primary and foreign keys? I'm not sure if there's a second part to the question, but yeah.
Well, I'll attempt to finish it. Let's see if this is good. So would I rather hire someone who understands the intricacies of data, meaning there's a foreign key and there's primary keys, and can set up a 5-table database? Let's pretend it's HubSpot with contacts, companies, deals, parent-child relationships between those companies, and there's one custom object, right? Let's just say, or would I want someone that knows forward momentum and clarity creator and can run meetings and can be like drive decisions and is like moving wicked fast? And the answer is yeah, I would want the clarity creator and the forward momentum. So here's why is if someone's able to do processes, they can understand data. And so it's not a big leap, honestly, to learn how to create a 5-table database. And since we're working in HubSpot, it's honestly, it's very rare that it gets to be larger than 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you saw that team is there's 3 different people on a RevOps team. And there is a point when you're like, okay, strategist, you don't know how to do SQL and you don't know SQL. And there are very specific things we need to transform this data between 2 different places. And we need someone that understands SQL and can write, that understands Java and Node. And that's called a data engineer, and it's a different skill set. So the question you're asking is, it's when do I hire the data engineer and when do I hire the strategist? Or this, like it is the strategist first, the data engineer is later. And while they work together and the data engineer reports to the strategist, the data engineer may make more money. I mean, like that is a very difficult skill set. That's a data scientist that's executing there. So just like, it's not these titles and who they report to money. I just want to, as a point for salary.
All right. Matt, you had another question. If you had to make one hire from finance, marketing, or sales, same personality, different skill set, who would you choose? I feel like this is probably like a very specific scenario where he's in.
Yeah, he's like, can you ask the question? Is the person inside sales and marketing? No, look at the question.
Yeah, I think you're looking at like the same person, but just from a different skill set. So one from finance or from marketing, sales. Who would you choose to become like a RevOps pro?
I would do the same thing. I would not choose between them. I would have all 3 of them do the same exact mocks. I would score them. And then I would, after the scoring, I would then execute. So to me, again, FinOps and the ability to, so just an example, the ability to do contract management from quote to cash and then have invoices and have an ERP and manage that. Like an ERP is essentially a data source. So like, does someone know FinOps? Marketing ops is a database and sales is a database. They're all the same they're all the same things with different processes. So what do I want? I want the person that can best create a process and then data around it and run a meeting. So I don't care where they come from. I don't care where their skill set lies. I want to know in terms of like their current competency, in terms of whatever operational skill set they have. I want to know, can they create clarity and can they do forward momentum? And I just over and over, that is what matters most in RevOps, in my opinion, that I found from my experience.
All right. I think that makes sense. There was one probably last question because I don't see any new ones coming in. And that's by Foster. How do you know when the customer is ready for RevOps? So this is a bit of a different question and probably one for RevPartners in general, I think.
If I was to put my sales hat on, it's like, you're always ready for RevOps, but let's be more specific. And this goes into what RevOps is. I have a whole inbound talk about this. So, and I really mean this is, we talk about RevOps, and RevOps is, so like we talk about RevOps, the way people talk about RevOps is we're like RevOps is when all data is centrally located in one location and we have a common source of data and from sales, marketing, and CS, and it all works together. That is not RevOps. That's RevOps done well. You don't define a soccer game or a football. The reason I use soccer, I'm just gonna be because I'm talking about soccer. You don't define a soccer game by, oh, that's a great. Here's soccer, Jan. You score 5 goals. No, you define the soccer game by soccer is this beautiful sport where you're able to have a certain amount of people on the field at the same time that kicks this ball into this net, and the person who does it the most wins. So revenue operations is the ability to create revenue through processes. That's revenue operations. So when you say, when does a business need that? You always need that. I mean, just being serious, like it's and everybody's doing revenue operations. It's just whether are you and to use like in America, are you at an 8th grade dance and you look awkward as you dance with people, or are you like dancing with the stars? You are always doing revenue operations. You just might look awkward, and some people are doing it better than you. But no one's not doing it. Everyone's doing it.
I think that was an amazing last question, and I love the soccer references and the dancing references. But yeah, I think there are no other questions that seem to be coming in. So let's leave it at that. Thank you everyone for joining. Before we leave, Matt is speaking at Inbound in a couple of weeks. I think it was October 13th. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you haven't signed up for Inbound yet, do it and just go and see Matt. It'll be worth it. I'm putting the link in the chat now. There is indeed a recording that will be sent out to all of you tomorrow. Once again, thank you so much, Matt, for doing this presentation on how to hire RevOps Jedis. I hope it was helpful to anyone here, and they know the next few steps on finding that perfect RevOps Jedi. But yeah, thanks again so much for speaking here, and I hope to see you very shortly in Inbound and maybe in future events here in the community too.
Maybe future RevOps events. Appreciate everybody. You have a good one. Stay awesome. Keep doing it big.
Bye.